Part 8. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 71. Chiren, have you thought about the new storyboard? Lan Dai asked the yellow-haired glasses gentleman with a tired face. Although he stayed up late to draw, when he thought of Takahashi Makoto's proud laugh that day, Lan Dai was so excited, somewhat unhappy. If this continues, there's no way we can win against Aiken. The new story has been thought of, but... The yellow-haired glasses man raised the notebook in his hand, looking at his good partner's sluggish look. His face became a little worried. Hey, Supreme, you haven't had a good rest recently. Is it okay to go on like this? I know this. Lan Dai looked stubborn and didn't seem to care about his partner's advice. Although the ranking has stabilized now, it was good to be tied with AG last time, but if you want to animate it, this result is not enough, let alone defeating Ah Cheng. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Seeing the eager look on Lan Dai's face, the man with yellow-haired glasses sighed and did not continue talking. The two have been together for several years and know each other's tempers thoroughly. The unwilling look on Lan Dai's face can also be understood by the yellow-haired glasses man, but, being too impatient is not good. Mr. Huang-haired glasses can notice that his partner has been a little too impatient recently. Although the speed and quality of painting have improved a lot, being too impatient always makes Mr. Huang-haired glasses feel a little uneasy. Moreover, after the two were officially serialized, the editor in charge was changed. Uncle Hattori, who had worked well with the two, was replaced by Minato, who had just worked for more than a year. Although Lan Dai has great trust in Gang Puo, Huang Mao glasses advice to Gang Puo, although sometimes he can barely accept it, but as a plot builder, he always feels that it is a bit subtle. Editor from Gang Puo, Huang Mao glasses was thinking about Gang Puo in his heart when he received a call from Gang Puo. This made Mr. Huang Mao glasses a little speechless. Hello Mr. Minatura, this is Takagi. What's the matter? Mr. Gang Puo is really... Lan Dai rubbed his sore shoulders and looked at the clock on the wall. It seems that it's not yet time to submit the manuscript. Should we postpone it a little longer? That's okay, I can still change it. What? Cheng is injured and hospitalized. The yellow-haired glasses guy stood up in surprise, and Lan Dai over there also looked like he couldn't believe it. Mr. Minatura, what happened? Huh? Okay, I understand. Is it at Goko Municipal Hospital? See you later. Kairan, what's going on? Lan Dai looked at his partner who hung up the phone, as if it was hard to accept. Wasn't Aiken fine a few days ago? How could? I heard from Mr. Gang Puo that Chen was involved in a bank robbery and was injured because of it. The yellow-haired glasses man pushed up his glasses and looked at Lan Dai, whose face was mixed with surprise and sadness. Hey, the highest, let's go together, let's go see Aiken. I'll call Jianji, and ask Yadu to go with us. When Aiken Mumenjai and her family members came to the hospital, they found Takahashi Makoto's room full of people. Half of Makoto Takahashi's face was wrapped in gauze and he was leaning on the hospital bed. Yoshida stood aside with his head lowered and had almost no sense of presence. The editor-in-chief, who had always had a strong aura, was also standing aside with a serious face at this time. Oh! I found a good duo of gay friends. Makoto Takahashi suddenly became energetic after watching the four people from Aiken Mumenjai come in. You guys came so fast. Sure enough, those idiots in the intelligence department can't even do the most basic things. Can't we keep it secret? Now that you are here, that means... Although I personally agree with your brave behavior, after thinking for a while, the editor-in-chief began to reprimand Makoto Takahashi, but Makoto Takahashi, you have to be lucky. It was a complete fluke that you were able to subdue 3 gangsters this time. You were. We should discuss it with Yoshida, we shouldn't be so reckless, so. Editor-in-chief, I have something to tell you. Yoshida pulled the editor's clothes, interrupting the editor's lecture, and the two left one after another. Takahashi Makoto watched Yoshida leave with the editor, and laughed happily, but because of the tug on his face the wound made Takahashi Makoto's smile a little distorted. It was a sad and depressing story with ups and downs. At the beginning, under the questioning of the four Lande, Takahashi Cheng spoke brightly and began to talk about what happened before. However, Makoto Takahashi concealed a lot, and the method of narration was very much Makoto Takahashi's style. At that time, the gun was only 1 centimeter away from my forehead, and at that critical moment of life and death, the heroic bloodline in the Demon King awakened. At the moment of awakening, Red Lotus New Dragon, De Mao King, Jin Pika, and the Great Emperor after many souls merged with my soul, I finally broke through the realm of Emperor Do and moved to a higher level. Hey, Supreme, it's not good to disturb the patient's rest, the yellow-haired glasses gentleman sent a mysterious message to Landai. After seeing the latter nodding, he turned to look at Takahashi Cheng. Cheng, I won't disturb your rest, just take a good rest, okay? Thank you for coming to see me. Do you think I would say this? How could Makoto Takahashi not understand what the yellow-haired glasses man said? Takahashi Makoto looked at Landai and the yellow-haired glasses man with an impatient look on his face. You are really brave to come to visit the Demon King without bringing any tributes. Go back and wait for the Demon King to wake up. Queen of the Sleeping Dragon, I will kill you to pieces. This guy. Landai and the yellow-haired glasses guy looked at each other and raised their middle fingers to Takahashi Makoto. Outside the ward door, the editor-in-chief looked a little complicated as he listened to Yoshida talking about some things. I blame myself now, editor-in-chief. Yoshida lowered his head with guilt. I didn't follow Chen into the bank at that time. I didn't expect this kind of thing to happen. If I had followed Chen at that time, then I wouldn't have it will make Aiken. Yoshida, the editor-in-chief patted Yoshida on the shoulder, his face extremely serious. When you went out to make a phone call, Aiken had already told me. Aiken already knew about this matter. Knowing about it at that time, I was also surprised, and even felt a little sorry, but Chen was very tolerant and didn't complain. Instead, he kept saying good things for you, so don't blame yourself now. That kid. Yoshida's tone was choked, and he secretly glanced at Makoto Takahashi in the ward, only to see him staring at the ceiling blankly, with a very strange look on his face. Mr. Yoshida, is Makoto-kun inside? Rina suddenly appeared at the door of the ward, with tears in her eyes and a look of disbelief on her face. Mr. Yoshida, what you said before, was a lie. It's human. I'm very sorry, Rina-chan. Yoshida bowed. Although he wanted to deny it, it was indeed the case. As time went by, Rina would always find out. Lie, 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 Rina's tears fell. She didn't care about Yoshida at all, and slammed open the ward door. Makoto-kun, we you. My princess, Makoto Takahashi spoke awkwardly, with a forced smile on his face. I'm sorry. I'm feeling a little unwell right now. It's a pity that I can't go on an outing with my princess. Makoto-kun. Rina covered her mouth, and big tears began to fall. Especially when she saw the bandage on the left side of Makoto Takahashi's face, she stretched out her hand to touch it, but it stopped in mid-air. Among them, your eyes. Aiken Momenha and his family were about to leave. After hearing Rina's words, they stopped. The yellow-haired glasses man suddenly noticed something, his face became a little pale, and he looked carefully at Takahashi Makoto's face. After putting on the bandage, a flash of uneasiness suddenly flashed in my heart. Chen, your eyes, could it be? Hey. That idiot from my familiar cat. Makoto Takahashi curled his lips in displeasure and gently held Rina's hand. Exchange of equal value. This is the condition for the coming of the world-destroying Demon King. From now on, the left eye will be. It doesn't matter if you lose the ability of the demon god's evil eye, because the Mangakyo Sharinan has been transplanted, so it doesn't matter. Besides, the demon god's evil eye will probably not be used in the future. Although Akin was shot by a gun before, he was lucky and did not injure his internal organs. After the bullet was removed through surgery, he could be discharged from the hospital as long as he rested for a period of time. However, the trauma to his left eye was more serious. The doctor said that the nerve was damaged. Maybe. Yoshida and the editor-in-chief walked in from the door, and it was Yoshida who spoke. Although the editor-in-chief had enlightened Yoshida before, it seemed that Yoshida still blamed himself very much, and everyone present could see the guilty look on his face. In other words, Cheng's left eye. Lan Dai's expression was a little dull, and Yado next to him covered his mouth in surprise, with tears in his eyes, and leaned his head gently on Lan Dai's shoulder. The man with yellow hair and glasses clenched his fists tightly, while Maji next to him held his arm tightly and kept wiping the corners of his eyes. "What expressions are you looking at?" Makoto Takahashi hugged Rina gently and growled with an unhappy look on his face. The wound on his abdomen was aching from the shock, but Makoto Takahashi ignored the pain. "All it's an equal exchange. You can get it back if you pay the right price later. Not to mention the eyes, even if you lose your arms, legs and feet, you can get them back. Makoto-kun, stop talking." Rina's tears had already wet Takahashi Makoto's clothes. Rina didn't say anything like "even if you become like this, I won't dislike you." Because Rina knew very well that Takahashi Makoto pretended to be strong, but he was actually hiding his inner fragility. If you really say this, it will definitely leave a thorn in Takahashi Makoto's heart. As time goes by, this thorn will gradually break the bond between the two and cut off their relationship. "Rina, my princess," Makoto Takahashi gently patted Rina's back and comforted him easily, "don't listen to the nonsense of my familiar cat. In fact, I made a contract with the devil. Left eye, well, it's just a deposit for the contract, so don't worry about it. Now, the highest, Cheng is like this." The yellow-haired glasses gentleman quietly made a gesture. "Will it have any impact?" "There must be some influence." Lan Dai looked at his partner's unprofessional gestures with a complicated expression on his face. For a long time, Makoto Takahashi and Eiji Niizuma have always been the people they wanted to surpass. Especially Makoto Takahashi, although he behaved like a middle-aged man sometimes, but now that Makoto Takahashi has become like this, Lan Dai's mood is a little complicated and he starts to feel inexplicably irritable. "Oh, you two good friends over there, do you think your little moves can hide from the omniscient and omnipotent Demon King?" Makoto Takahashi looked at the movements of the two people and effortlessly guessed what they were thinking. "What are you wearing? It seems that I was too kind to you before. Do you think that you can take advantage of the situation when the Demon King is injured? Tisk, 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 is this arrogance or arrogance?" "Ah Cheng, that's not what we meant." The man with yellow hair and glasses misunderstood Takahashi Makoto and quickly explained, "We were thinking. After all, Takahashi Makoto is already like this, so let him off a little in the comics." Takahashi Makoto sneered and looked at the two with some disdain. "Do you have the qualifications to say such things now? Hey, 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 are you guys underestimating the Demon King? If you want to defeat the Demon King, give it your all and fight with your life. Although I didn't want to say it, I have to say it now, you guys are really weak." A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 72. Just a few days after Makoto Takahashi was hospitalized, classmate Lan Dai also entered the hospital because of illness. "Oh ha ha ha, should I say this is fate?" Makoto Takahashi checked his body and looked at the person lying on the hospital bed. The wound was pulled due to laughter, and the smile on his face was a little distorted. "I didn't expect that in just a few days, damn it, you actually entered sanatorium number 13. What should I say at this time? Well, welcome to hell, the loser who tried to challenge the devil. Doctor, can you change the room?" Landai asked the doctor without hesitation, this person's words and behavior have affected my normal rest. Do you want to escape, cowardly challenger? This is the consequence of giving the middle finger to the Demon King before. How does it feel? The Demon King's curse is very powerful, isn't it? Makoto Takahashi looked at Landai with an unhappy look on his face. The expression on his face is very embarrassing. But seeing that you are so sincerely trying to follow the Demon King, let me give you a chance to atone for your sins. Follow me and say, become my dependent, become my believer, respect the Demon King, worship the Demon King, and dedicate all your flesh and soul, you can be saved and have eternal life. By the way, when will you be able to get out of this state? Landai completely ignored Takahashi Cheng's words, but looked at Takahashi Cheng's bandaged face again. Cheng, your left eye is really, losing one eye will have an impact on drawing comics, right? Makoto Takahashi did not respond quickly to Landai's question. Instead, he turned his head and said slowly after a while, common people, don't speculate on the thoughts and actions of the Demon King. This is what a stupid thing. As I said before, you are too weak compared to the Demon King who has the plug-in. Yeah. Maybe you're right, Cheng. Landai looked up at the ceiling and smiled somewhat self-deprecatingly, we think comics are too simple. We think that as long as we work hard at drawing, we can serialize them. After all, unlike you, we are not genius-level monsters. It's not a monster, it's the Demon King, Makoto Takahashi corrected him immediately. There is a big difference in points. Zinzuma's Crow has been serialized for a long time, and Akins has serialized 2 comics at the same time. In contrast, after many attempts, the first comic was finally serialized. We are really weak. Landai didn't pay attention to what Takahashi Makoto said, but recalled with emotion, but even so, Chiren and I have been working hard to win. I want to win. I want to defeat you. I want to fulfill my promise with Yadu. Did you ignite your instinct to fight because you fell into memory killing mode? Makoto Takahashi looked at Landai, who was getting more and more excited as he spoke, and suggested kindly, don't speak so passionately. Young man, be careful to trigger the devil. The set curse makes the pain worse. So I won't lose, and I can't lose. Landai's face was a little pale, and the physical damage was aggravated because of his excessive emotions. However, Takahashi Cheng looked at Landai's eyes full of fighting spirit and did not what to say, but as a listener, continued to listen carefully. Although under Kairen's design, I was a little confused and made a promise to get married to Yadu. But now think about it, because of this, I have the motivation to move forward and the belief to fight. Although Cheng, you and Zinzi have been at the front, but this time we have started the series, so we have a chance to catch up with you. And being hospitalized, I also. Hey, Supreme, I brought what you want. The yellow-haired glasses man suddenly came in with a bag of things, interrupting Landai's words. Open the bag, and it contains a series of things such as drawing paper, brushes, ink, etc. The man with yellow-haired glasses piled all these things in front of Landai and scratched his head with a somewhat embarrassed expression. Although Mr. Gangpyo warned you to have a good rest, I still brought them. Thank you, Akito. Landai picked up the brush, turned to look at Takahashi Makoto, and continued what he just said. In order to experience the feeling of Wangdao comics, Akito was severely beaten by Mikaki. Done. I wanted to improve the quality of my paintings, so I copied hundreds of cartoon manuscripts as exercises. Maybe in your opinion, it doesn't make sense to do this, but even so, we have to keep drawing until we catch up. Until I defeat you. What a good realization. Makoto Takahashi looked a little complicated, looking at the 2 people opposite him with a forced smile on his face. It was really my mistake to underestimate you before. But you. Do you think that the Demon King who lost his left eye will fall into a weak state? Ha 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 ha. Makoto Takahashi gently touched the position of his left eye with his hand. After laughing wildly, he released his anger to the two of them. The Demon King threatened, You really underestimate the fierce Demon King of the Phoenix Academy. I'm sorry I'm a little late. Chang, Lee Byung-jian, like Mr. Huangmao Glasses, entered the ward with painting tools. After saying hello to the Yachin Mumanjai duo, Lee Byung-jian began to sigh. He got up and said, I thought Chang, you were injured and hospitalized, so you wouldn't be able to draw comics for the time being, so I thought I could finish the comic manuscripts I had accumulated before. Oh, being lazy, or something, it's really the most shameful behavior of dragging one's feet. Takahashi Makoto looked at Lee Byung-jian with resentment. When the Demon Lord's plan failed, it was you guys who dragged it down a lot of the time. Apologize to the Demon Lords all over the world. Yes, yes. Lee Byung-jian shrugged helplessly, and looked at the comic manuscript handed over by Takahashi Makoto with some doubts. This is for testing only, because I don't know the probability of Sherry non-backlash. I finished the sample first. Takahashi Makoto looked at Lee Byung-jian calmly, but at present, the new skills are still immature, so there will be some problems when I start testing. Well, this is basically the situation. Aiken's painting level is amazing. It seems to be better than the highest. The yellow-haired man with glasses stretched his head to look at the comic manuscript in Lee Byung-jian's hand, and silently compared it with his partner in his heart. His face was a little ugly. All this was seen by Lan Dai. Although he was a little unwilling, Lan Dai also knew that he had wasted several years for some reasons, and compared to that, he was indeed a little worse than Takahashi Makoto. Ah Chang, although there is no problem with the background, the position of the character is a little to the left. Lee Byung-jian was still very powerful as an assistant, and directly pointed out Takahashi Makoto's mistake. Are you deliberately? Oh, is that so? Well, that's just your illusion. Takahashi Makoto looked at Lee Byung-jian innocently, complained a little dissatisfied, took out the previously drawn storyboard, and handed it to Lee Byung-jian. Speaking of that guy Ding Ding, does he think that the devil is not in the castle? He can be lazy. This kind of behavior will be slaughtered by the brave hero later, which is indeed the corresponding result. Brother Music, then in exchange, you know. Higurashi wants to highlight the characteristics of Shin here, but the image of the character can only be expressed through close-ups. Lee Byung-jian looked at Takahashi Makoto's storyboard and complained helplessly, Ah Chang, are you deliberately being lazy? They are clearly the same person, but you drew them as twins. Humph. Instead of complaining about this, you might as well talk about the problem of Full Metal Alchemist. Because of what Lan Dai said just now, I thought of some characters that I had a feeling about. I thought it was a bit difficult to shape before, but greed. Takahashi Makoto turned his head and looked at Lan Dai, who was caught in the crossfire. It's really a very lovable character. Want to win, want to win, want to marry classmate Yadu, want, tut tut tut, it's really too greedy. Ah Chang, you guy. Lan Dai's face turned red and he turned his head shyly, while the yellow-haired man with glasses on the side pushed his glasses and smiled without saying a word. But Chang, you have drawn this part of Full Metal Alchemist before. Lee Byung-jian smiled apologetically at Lan Dai, and then pointed at the comic manuscript in his hand. You have inserted some war scenes in the comic before. If you add it in this chapter. Looking at Takahashi Makoto and the other man who were in discussion, Lan Dai and the man with yellow hair and glasses looked at each other, exchanged information, and started their own work. The four people seemed to have forgotten that they were in the hospital, and two of them seemed to have forgotten the fact that they were patients. When Yoshida and Minotaur editor came to the hospital, they saw the four people who were in a heated discussion. My cat, the expression on your face makes me feel a little uncomfortable. Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida, then looked at Minotaur beside Yoshida, and a hint of realization appeared on his face. It is true, has the barrier of the sanctuary been broken? It is really useless, servants. Sanctuary, are you still in the mood to talk about this now? Yoshida suppressed his dissatisfaction. By the way, you are in the hospital now, what should we do about the serialization? Do you want to suspend the serialization for a while? Suspend the publication? Stop the serialization. Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida in disbelief, and the expression on his face became a little cold. Is this a provocation to the Demon King? My cat, you seem to be getting more and more presumptuous recently. Are you ready to die? Listening to the conversation between Yoshida and Takahashi Makoto, except for Lee Binjian who knew some of the situation, Landai and others looked at each other. Because Takahashi Makoto is serializing two comics at the same time, Landai silently calculated his drawing speed in his heart, and then looked at Takahashi Makoto helplessly. In terms of serialization, it is probably difficult to do it. Humph. You ignorant mortals, if you are only at this level, how can you become the Demon King? Takahashi Makoto sneered. There will always be various accidents in war. If you can't anticipate the enemy's moves, how can you win the final victory? Brother Music, this is the time, lead the surprise troops to launch a surprise attack. That, Mr. Yoshida. Lee Binjian's smile was a little awkward. Aiken has already drawn some before, the specific number, well, Full Metal Alchemist is 4 episodes, a total of 108 pages, Higurashi is also 4 episodes, a total of 96 pages. There should be no problem with serialization this month. How can there be so many? Yoshida was busy training the little sea otter during this period, and Takahashi Makoto only came to collect the comic manuscripts on time. Unexpectedly, during this period of time, Takahashi Makoto actually completed so many comic manuscripts. Humph, my beloved cat, this is all because of you. Takahashi Makoto was very unhappy when he came here early, and looked at Yoshida angrily. It was because of the curse you cast that I foresaw the danger approaching, so I kept using the Demon King awakening mode to store spare troops just in case. I never expected that the previous premonition would come true. Wait, the reason why I became like this may also be because of the curse. My beloved cat, you should commit seppuku to apologize. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 73. These alchemists are really. Looking at the comics, the alchemists used almost magical methods to change the terrain, create explosions, and force the Ishval people into a desperate situation. Naoki Kinoshita felt a little depressed. This kind of monster-like fighting method, fighting against the Ishval people who can only use guns, is completely bullying. Compared to Higurashi, Naoki Kinoshita likes Full Metal Alchemist more. Because Naoki Kinoshita likes reading very much, he has a lot of knowledge involved, and Makoto Takahashi's Full Metal Alchemist also involves many aspects of knowledge. At first, Naoki Kinoshita was interested in Full Metal Alchemist because of the name of the comic. Naoki Kinoshita had just read a novel about alchemy some time ago, and now he was in the heat of it, and happened to see Full Metal Alchemist. With some expectations, he started reading this comic. Just the content of the first few episodes made Naoki Kinoshita exclaim. First of all, it's pseudoscientific alchemy. In the comics, alchemy is given a setting of equivalent exchange. In Naoki Kinoshita's opinion, this setting of Fengguangai Yuan Xiongzhen classifies alchemy, a pseudoscience, into the category of orthodox science. Objects cannot be created out of thin air, nor can they disappear for nothing. There are gains for every effort, but for those who pay the price, this gain may not be equal to their expectations. Then there is Edward's brotherhood. After seeing Edward lose his left leg, he shouted loudly that he would get his brother back at any cost. Naoki Kinoshita was sighing at the time. When he saw Al doubting his brother because of Barry's bewitchment, Naoki Kinoshita wanted to pull Al to ask, "Why do you, who are usually sensible, doubt your brother Edward?" So when Naoki Kinoshita saw Winry crying and telling Al the truth, his nose was a little sour. When he saw the two of them reconciled on the roof in the comics, Naoki Kinoshita's eyes were already wet. After Hughes died in the last issue, although he knew it was impossible, Naoki Kinoshita was still praying before opening the comics, hoping that a miracle would happen and that Hughes would be able to survive. Perhaps because of his prayers, many of the contents of this issue are about Hughes and Mustang, and the heavy topic of war is introduced into the comics. War is a terrifying and disgusting existence. For Naoki Kinoshita, war is too far away. Although there have been constant wars in American countries in recent years, there is peace and prosperity in Zhongzhou and Dongzhou. Naoki Kinoshita does not know much about war, and many of his views come from the description of historical materials. Although Naoki Kinoshita knows that many historical materials may not be true, Naoki Kinoshita does not care. He is not a fanatical fan of war, and does not want to delve into the truth behind the war recorded in historical materials. Although Fullmetal Alchemist is built in a world where alchemy is extremely developed, its entire background is always permeated with the army and war. The Ishval War was actually a tragedy caused by the androids who interfered in order to implement national alchemy. This war led to the tragedy of a nation's disappearance and the indelible hatred between the two nations. Even if Mustang was unwilling to kill, even if Hughes only wanted to live happily with his beloved woman, even if every soldier and general had his own ideas and wishes, they all became tools for killing on the battlefield. When the war was over, many national alchemists who had participated in the Ishval War gave up this awe-inspiring identity because they could not bear the condemnation of their conscience. There is no choice, no escape, so you can only bear it silently. Some people can die heroically for their ideals. Some people must live in humiliation for their ideals. Although it is only a part, Makoto Takahashi has tried his best to portray the cruelty of the entire war, which also indirectly shows the combat effectiveness of the alchemists. Especially after a large number of alchemists joined the war, the Ishval people went from being able to maintain a balance at the beginning to being in a weak position. No wonder Edward's master severely punished Edward after learning that Edward had become a national alchemist. Seeing the cruel description of war, Naoki Kinoshita was also deeply touched. It seems that their master may have seen the cruelty of war in the past, so he hates it so much. Alchemy, religion, human nature, war. Naoki Kinoshita was more and more shocked as he counted. There were too many aspects involved in this Fullmetal Alchemist. Why did Feng Guangai Yuan Kima think of putting so many things in one comic? And it seems that everything is arranged naturally and smoothly. These topics are integrated together and connected appropriately, without a sense of forced disharmony. Should I say that Feng Guangai Yuan is worthy of it? After reading this issue of Fullmetal Alchemist, Naoki Kinoshita closed his eyes and recalled the plot. Because he was eager to know the content later, he opened the magazine again, trying to find clues about the later plot. Forget it, I really can't fall in love with it. Naoki Kinoshita accidentally turned to the page where Higurashi was serialized. He suddenly felt a little resentful and closed the magazine fiercely. By the way, couldn't Mr. Feng Guangai Yuan just serialize Fullmetal Alchemist? Why did he still want to draw Higurashi? I really don't understand. A few days later, Yoshida looked at the reader survey paper about Han Cicada, and his previously uncertain face finally showed a hint of relief. Because the ranking of this episode still remains in the top 10, it seems that it has escaped the crisis of being cut in half, which makes Yoshida let out a long sigh of relief. Just when Yoshida was about to call Takahashi Makoto to announce the good news, he remembered that Takahashi Makoto is still in the hospital and cannot use his mobile phone. There is no problem on Cheng's side, now it's on Hiramaru-kun's side. Yoshida frowned as he looked at the ranking of Little Sea Otter Comics. Although the first chapter strongly took the first place, but in recent times, here, the ranking kept falling, which made Yoshida very angry. At the previous serialization meeting, Yoshida vowed to speak boldly, boasting the little sea otter into a genius that is rare to see in a century. Although the content of the first episode did prove Yoshida's outstanding vision, during the recent period, the little sea otter's mood has become, he was a little depressed and kept clamoring to stop publishing, but he disappeared every now and then, which made Yoshida very distressed. It seems like what Cheng said, for people like Hiramaru-kun, you should give him a slap in the face. When Yoshida remembered that he had discussed with Takahashi Makoto before about how to improve the enthusiasm of the little sea otter, Takahashi Makoto listed here is a very simple example. My beloved cat, do you know why Sadaharu can master the skill of opening all locks? Makoto Takahashi used a nostalgic tone at that time, holding Sadaharu in front of Yoshida. Back then, my subordinates, once there is a person named Inomoto, right? He is very professional in breaking seals. In order to let Sadaharu master special skills, I specially asked Sadaharu to learn from him for a while. Let Ding-chun go to eat a Manchu banquet. If he can't open the seal, let Ding-chun go out to beg. After constant training, Ding-chun finally mastered the inherent skill of opening all locks. Just when Yoshida was reminiscing, he suddenly saw Minatora and the editor-in-chief getting ready to go out. The expression on Minato's face was very complicated. He was apologetic and uneasy, but also a little self-blame. Although the editor-in-chief still had a serious face, Yoshida could feel with his intuition that the editor-in-chief was very angry now. What happened? Yoshida pulled a colleague aside and asked in a low voice, what is the editor-in-chief going to do? Why does he look so angry? Detective Trap is probably a bit dangerous. A colleague looked around and whispered to Yoshida, the rankings started to decline before, and after the editor-in-chief heard that the author was hospitalized, he decided to put this comic on hiatus. Suspension of publication? This kind of thing. Yoshida suddenly broke into a cold sweat. Although his colleague was talking about another comic, Yoshida began to feel uneasy thinking about Makoto Takahashi, who was also in the hospital. Then did the editor-in-chief say anything? The matter of the suspension of publication of Han-chan and Steel. Probably, I will also suspend publication. A colleague looked at Yoshida hesitantly, and when he saw Yoshida's face was a little pale, he immediately defended himself, because the cartoonists who are also serializers are now hospitalized. One has suspended publication, but the other one can guaranteed serialization. This kind of deliberate favoritism will make other authors dissatisfied. Well, Yoshida remembered that he had discussed the issue of suspending publication with Takahashi Makoto before, and his face was a bit ugly. Cheng is a popular cartoonist, so it shouldn't be a big deal if he suddenly suspends publication. Forget it, I'd better go to the hospital for treatment. Look. Anyway, Hamaru-kun has always wanted to visit Cheng and the others in the hospital. Now it's time to fulfill his wish. Mr. Yoshida, you are so great. The little sea otter was very excited after learning that he could go to the hospital, with a flattering smile on his face. Let's go now. By the way, does the Phoenix Academy teacher need anyone to take care of him? Don't let me take care of the Phoenix Academy teacher. Humph. Yoshida snorted coldly, his face a little gloomy. Taking care of Chang? I think you don't want to draw comics, and you deliberately used this excuse. You can serialize with peace of mind. Since you have become a cartoonist, you must have the skills of a cartoonist. Professional ethics. I'll take you to see it. Even though Cheng was hospitalized, he didn't stop drawing comics. Ms. Yoshida, are you also lying? The little sea otter looked at Yoshida with disbelief, and roared at Yoshida with an affirmative expression. I said before that after becoming a cartoonist, you will have a high income, and you will also have a high income. I will be popular with girls, but now I am drawing comics every day, and there is no time to rest. I feel that I have become a tool for drawing comics. a slave of the Yashida family. No, I have become a dog raised by the Yashida family. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Yashida dragged the little sea otter into the taxi, looked at his watch, and smiled weirdly. When I take you to the hospital this time, I will show you what I told you before. Are those words true or false? Speaking of Cheng's girlfriend, she is a very popular singer, Rina-chan. Yashida, you are lying again. I won't believe it easily this time. The little sea otter completely ignored Yashida and poked the car window with his finger sadly. It was because I believed in you that I ended up where I am today. Whatever you say this time, I won't believe you anymore. Really? Yashida looked at the little sea otter and raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Since you said so, forget it. I told Rina-chan before that I would ask her to introduce some beautiful big sisters to you when she has time. Mr. Yashida, is everything you said true? A hint of expectation flashed in the little otter's eyes, and his attitude suddenly changed 180 degrees. If it wasn't in the car, the little otter would definitely lie on the ground with his hands and knees prostrate. The little otter showed a smile that he thought was hearty, and gently fiddled with his bangs. Mr. Yashida, I will definitely draw comics well when I come back later, for sure. Well, come on, Mr. Hiramaru. Yashida looked at the little otter's expectant face, nodded secretly, and silently calculated in his heart that the little otter would probably be able to hold on for a while. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 74. My turn, draw a card. Lan Dai, you are dead this time. What I drew was Resurrection of the Dead. So, come again, my soul, blue eyes white dragon, ha 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 ha. This was Makoto Takahashi's wild laughter after he was suspected of being possessed by the president. When Yashida and Little Sea Otter heard it outside the ward door, their reactions were completely opposite. This little kid, Chang, doesn't know that the hospital should be quiet. Yashida glanced at the little sea otter next to him with a dark line, and the corner of his mouth twitched. You really know how to choose the right time, that little kid. The reason why Yashida brought the little sea otter to the hospital was to let the little sea otter experience it. Although he was hospitalized, Takahashi Makoto still did not stop drawing comics. Yashida had witnessed Takahashi Makoto's painting process before, and sometimes he was injured due to some movements, but Takahashi Makoto still gritted his teeth and continued painting. In this state, Makoto Takahashi is completely opposite to the little sea otter. Yashida brought the little sea otter to the hospital just to stimulate the little sea otter. But, hey, Teacher Phoenix Academy seems to be having a lot of fun. The little sea otter looked at Yashida with a puzzled expression, and his face instantly became a little angry. Yashida, what's going on? Weren't you always in the car before? Tell me, is the Phoenix Academy teacher serious about painting? Cheng is a patient, Yashida complained with some dissatisfaction, his voice louder than that of a little sea otter. Anyway, let's go in and take a look first. After entering the ward, something unexpected happened. Makoto Takahashi was not playing, but drawing seriously. Lan Dai, who was in the same ward, was also drawing. There were two girls sitting next to him, Huang Mao. The man with glasses was wearing headphones on the side, and the pen in his hand kept writing the plot in his notebook. At this time, you are still painting, the little sea otter turned his head in disbelief, and his face instantly turned pale. And those two girls, are their girlfriends, right? They are really cute. Look clearly, Hiramaru-kun, how could Yashida let the little sea otter go so easily? A weird smile appeared on Yashida's face, and he twisted the little sea otter's head with both hands and slowly turned it around. Did you see it? This is a cartoonist. Don't you think this is the only way to be called a role model for cartoonists? Yes. Little sea otter sheepishly presented the gift and asked Yadu, do you appreciate his work like this? Tisk tisk tisk, little sea otter, Makoto Takahashi did not stop the brush in his hand, and did not even raise his head. Are you thinking that if you start drawing comics seriously after you go back, you might be able to find something like this? My beautiful girlfriend? So, do you need help from the Demon King? Yes. Please be sure to help me. The little sea otter teleported to Takahashi Makoto's hospital bed, with a flattering smile on his face. May I ask what the teacher from the Phoenix Institute has ordered? I will definitely be able to complete it. Oh? Really? Makoto Takahashi stopped painting, pulled out a piece of paper filled with text from under the drawing, and handed it to the little sea otter. Sign this contract. This way you can gain the power of the plug-in. This contract contains the power of Brother Cheng's destiny. As long as you write your name, from today on, you will become the master of the Crystal Palace, and you will have countless girls who will throw themselves at you. Don't hesitate, a good ship is waiting for you. Hey, your place is really lively. I didn't expect Mr. Hiramaru, who has an escape fetish, to be there too. The silver-haired guy held the door and greeted with a smile on his face. Hey, are you feeling better, Mr. Sincerely? Is your injury feeling better, Mr. Makoto Takahashi? Hey, it's really not the right time. After watching the silver-haired guy come in, Makoto Takahashi curled his lips unwillingly, because the contract he had just given to the little sea otter was confiscated by Yoshida with a weird look on his face. Makoto Takahashi turned to look at the silver-haired brother. Because the spiritual energy in the human world is insufficient, magic cannot be repaired, so it will take some time to adjust. Haha, Cheng, you are still as interesting as before. The silver-haired boy looked at Takahashi Cheng, then turned to look at Landai over there, with a happy smile on his face. Sure enough, you too, even if I'm still in the hospital, but I'm still drawing comics. But I feel relieved to see that you are still drawing comics with your heart. Of course, I won't lose to everyone. Landai paused and looked at the silver-haired brother with fighting spirit. Humph. I am the Demon King who wants to unify the comics world. How can a mere injury stop the Demon King from moving forward? Makoto Takahashi did not stop drawing, but continued to draw comics. After a while, use your defeat to deeply remember the terror of the Demon King in your heart. Makoto-kun, you need to be more polite at this time. Rina rubbed her head with a headache, turned around and smiled at the silver-haired brother. This is the first time we meet. I am Cheng-kun's fiancé, Rina Ogata. Fiancé. When Rina revealed her identity, it was not just the silver-haired brother who was surprised. Everyone's surprised eyes kept wandering between Rina and Takahashi Makoto. Wait a minute, Your Highness Princess, is this really okay? Makoto Takahashi looked at Rina with a smile on his face. He originally wanted to deny it, but he changed his mind when he spoke. The setting of fiancé is. Makoto-kun, have you forgotten? Rina looked at Makoto Takahashi sadly, with tears in her eyes. Didn't you agree with Rina before that after becoming a very popular cartoonist, you would marry Rina? Is there such an agreement? Makoto Takahashi looked at Rina with a puzzled face. I remember the content of the agreement. It seems that it is not like this, right? It is about the princess who will be imprisoned after killing the Ogata slime elite. Save it, then destroy the world or something. Hey, you should be more honest at this time, Cheng. The silver-haired brother hugged Takahashi Makoto's neck fiercely. No one will laugh at you. This is a ward, but it's still so lively. Just when Makoto Takahashi wanted to defend himself, a cold voice came from the door of the ward. Everyone followed the sound, and the editor-in-chief and Gangpyo walked in one after another. The editor-in-chief had a cold face and an imposing manner, but Gangpyo behind him lowered his head, not daring to look up at Landai and Huangmao glasses. Jun Yoshida's expression changed, and he looked at Makoto Takahashi uneasily. He had already guessed the editor's intention. Although Yoshida arrived in advance, there were too many people before and he didn't have time to talk to Takahashi Makoto in detail. Sorry, The editor-in-chief pushed up his glasses, looked at everyone present, and said slowly, except for Yachin Mu Menjai and Phoenix Academy Kuma, can everyone else go out for a while? We have some things to discuss. Although it was just a discussion tone, the editor's tone still made the originally cheerful atmosphere become depressing. Yoshida's heart was beating fast, and he turned his head guiltily, looking at Makoto Takahashi, who wanted to say something, but opened his mouth, but still no sound came out. Oh! The commander does not guard the front line base, but goes out in person. Makoto Takahashi showed a playful smile on his face. Amidst Yoshida's somewhat frightened expression, he picked up the eye next to him and put it on, specially asked me and Landai by name. They stay, let everyone go out. The guilty looks on the faces of my cat and the Hong Kong PU editor, combining these conditions, there is only one truth. Humph, it's really interesting. Why are we being asked to avoid it? The silver-haired guy looked a little angry, thinking that he already understood what the editor meant. The silver-haired guy leaned back on his chair and looked at the editor with an unhappy look on his face. We are the companions of Ajumu and Phoenix Academy, murderous ones. How can we stand idly by when we see our companions being bullied? A companion, the editor looked at the silver-haired brother coldly, the expression on his face not changing at all. It's really a mediocre relationship. Of course. Although it is literally written as companion, the actual reading should be opponent. This was the silver-haired guy's explanation. Of course. Although it is literally written as companion, the actual reading should be subordinate. At the same time, Makoto Takahashi also made a sound. You want to take action against the Demon King's men, Commander. Are you planning to declare war on the Demon King? Okay. The editor-in-chief looked at Makoto Takahashi in surprise. You all can stay. In just a few days, Rina and Azu became good friends. Yado has a gentle and virtuous personality, while Rina also comes across as soft-spoken. After the two of them got along for a while, they became good friends who talked about everything. Listening to the editor's words, Rina and Yado exchanged looks, stood up at the same time, and wanted to leave. If you want to protect your subordinates, their families, you must also protect them. Makoto Takahashi gave Rina a look of leave with peace of mind and then began to ask the editor, then, you are here to tell us that the manga will be suspended? Something. Last night, we had a meeting to discuss that. We decided to suspend publication of the 3 comic strips currently being serialized, Detective, Metal Steel and Hanging, until April next year, that is, until you, the original author, graduate from high school. He looked at it. Everyone looked surprised. The editor pushed up his glasses and looked at Landai. The reason is because of the death of Taro Kawaguchi. By the way, was I shot while I was lying down? Makoto Takahashi still kept smiling, but a cold light flashed in his eyes. Why did my comics have to be suspended? Is it because of this period of time? We are also in the hospital. If we only ask Aiken Mu Menjai to take a break, we are worried that they will make a noise, so why do I also have to take a break? That's right. The editor-in-chief let out a long sigh, looked at the bandage on Takahashi Makoto's face, and sighed with some regret. Moreover, Takahashi Makoto, your injury is too serious. Everyone thinks it's best to let you rest. For a while. After Landai was silent for a moment, he looked at the editor-in-chief calmly. Uncle's death has nothing to do with my serialization. The death of manga artist Taro Kawaguchi is undoubtedly related to the manga serialization. A trace of regret flashed in the editor's eyes, and sincerely Kun's mother is very worried about him and doesn't want him to follow the path of his uncle. As for Makoto Takahashi, the same is true reason. Ha 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 ha. Makoto Takahashi suddenly laughed wildly and slowly took off his glasses. Amid everyone's surprised expressions, he stretched out his hand and pulled off the bandage on his face frantically. He looked a little ferocious and roared loudly, so what's the point? What do you think? The scar on the face is not caused by the comic strip. It's just a lesson from the devil's recklessness. It's a man's mettle and his glory. Makoto-kun, Rina hurried over, hugged Takahashi Makoto tightly, and stopped Takahashi Makoto's crazy behavior. It's just as you saw, Commander-in-Chief. Makoto Takahashi struggled slightly, then let Rina hold him, regardless of the wound starting to bleed, staring at the editor-in-chief with his right eye. The two beasts in my body are roaring and restless. They cannot accept or recognize this reason. Is there a beast inside Mr. Feng Guangyuan? Little Otter looked at Takahashi Makoto with a pale face and quietly asked Yoshida beside him. Of course there is. Takahashi Makoto heard the question from Little Otter and smiled strangely. One is black and the other is white. The black beast is called Ruri and the white beast is called Ding Chun. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 75. I can't take a break from the publication, I have to continue drawing. Lan Dai's hands were trembling a little, and he lowered his head and looked at his drawings. During the serialization process, Taro Kawaguchi never had to take a break from the publication, even if he was sick or had a fever. He couldn't sit up straight, but he kept painting. He said this was the thing he was most proud of. Although this idea is a bit old-fashioned, this idea of not wanting to delay the serialization is indeed very remarkable. When the editor heard Lan Dai's words, a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes, but his tone of voice was still cold. But the editorial department judges the author when it is necessary to rest, the author must abide by it. I will explain it directly. If you continue to draw like this, you will cause trouble for us. So take good care of yourself first. Even if you take good care of your health, you still have to suspend publication until April next year, right? The silver-haired guy curled his lips disdainfully. Take good care of your health, but even if you take good care of your health, you won't let you serialize it. Such a statement, it's a bit contradictory. This is indeed the case. The editor-in-chief's eyes were cold. Even though the silver-haired guy's tone was a bit harsh, he still showed no anger at all. It was a mistake of our editorial department to allow high school students to be serialized in the weekly. We are already reflecting on this. We will consider this matter carefully in the future. Then, besides wanting to appease Lan Dai and the others, is there any special reason for me to suspend publication? Makoto Takahashi looked at the editor in doubt, his tone full of threats. If I don't explain the situation, if so, I will let you travel to the underworld for the rest of your life. It was the decision of the board of directors to suspend the publication of the Phoenix Academy. The editor-in-chief was a little arrogant, but he still explained the specific situation. Someone put pressure on the board of directors and accused us of our mistakes, which led to such a result. Pressure? Accusation? Humph. It's really that one. Hey, he's really nosy. Makoto Takahashi's expression changed slightly, and he slowly walked down from the hospital bed. He staggered over because of his abdominal injury. In front of the editor-in-chief, Lan Dai looked back with a nostalgic look on his face. But Taro Kawaguchi told me back then, once you serialize it, you have to stick to it. Maybe Lan Dai can't remember it anymore, but I haven't forgotten it. Taro Kawaguchi once said that it is a man's romance to keep publishing. Although this idea is very good, but... The editor pushed up his glasses. Let me say it again, even if you continue to draw, you will have to wait until April next year to continue serializing. But if you take a good rest now, then wait until after April next year, I can guarantee that you will continue to serialize it. What nonsense! The little sea otter suddenly exploded, stood up, walked to the editor-in-chief, said something coldly, then turned and left. That's true, the silver-haired brother also stood up and walked outside. I'll leave first too. See you soon, Yachin Mumanjai and Phoenix Academy Ajhen. Unable to change the editor's opinion, it seems that the suspension of publication has become a foregone conclusion. The people in the room gradually left. Takahashi-chan sighed slowly, left the ward without saying a word, and walked towards the public phone. "I thought you would never make this call again in your life," an old voice came from the other end of the phone, with a cold tone in his tone. "How are you? Have you decided to come back?" "Hey, don't meddle in other people's business," Makoto Takahashi complained, "although the life of the third generation of rich people is very desirable, but oh, are you interfering too much, Grandpa?" "I think I told you last time." Ishine Takahashi on the other side of the phone sounded a little angry. "Although you are blind in your left eye, it is still possible to recover with your family's connections and financial resources. But if you want to recover, you have to stop the series and undergo surgery, which will probably take a long time. And you also know that the longer the delay, the smaller the chance of regaining sight. The level of medical care in this world is really far ahead of the previous life." Makoto Takahashi sighed with emotion. "It's a pity that we only have a chance, but we are not 100% sure that we will be able to regain our sight. Survival or destruction is indeed a difficult question to choose." "Sure enough, you still haven't thought about it," Ishine Takahashi said with some regret. "When you have opportunities, you must keep trying. This is the rule of success for businessmen. I will not force you to make a choice. After all, it is your own choice. Path. I just hope you won't regret your choice in the future." "Do you regret it?" After Takahashi-chan was silent for a moment, his tone was melancholy. "Is this considered an exchange of equal value?" "Let me think about it again, Grandpa." Makoto Takahashi hung up the phone. His face became a little tangled. This multiple-choice question was really. Takahashi Ishine had already said before that letting Takahashi Makoto undergo surgery might restore his eyesight, but Takahashi Makoto did not agree. According to the doctor at the time, because it involves the nerves on the face, this kind of surgery is very risky. If he is not careful, Takahashi Makoto will be blind in both eyes. And as long as you are undergoing surgery, you must rest quietly for a period of time. Moreover, the daily life after the operation must be taken care of by others for a period of time. Don't think about the comic series for the time being. Never stop publishing, but it's a man's romance." Makoto Takahashi kept mumbling the sentence and returned to the ward with a confused expression. "Makoto-kun, your face looks a little ugly. Did something happen?" Rina noticed that Takahashi Makoto's face looked a little ugly and asked nervously. "It's nothing, it's just." Looking at the man who came in from the door, wearing a black dress and handsome and pale appearance, Makoto Takahashi showed a hint of surprise on his face. "Tisk, tisk, tisk, it's really fast. The Demon King is on vacation. Is it finally over?" "Master, according to the master's instructions, I will be responsible for your food, clothing, and daily life from now on." The man in black showed a friendly smile and bowed slightly. "The discharge surgery has been completed for you, now I will help you clean it up." "Your name?" Makoto Takahashi looked at the polite butler with a smile on his face. "Is it really Sabas-chan?" "Yes, my full name is Sebastian Michaelis." Sebastian bowed slightly, walked to Makoto Takahashi's bedside, and began to pack his things, with a charming smile on his face. "So, are you leaving now? The car is ready. Should you go back to the master, or go back to the studio, the Demon King's inherent territory?" Makoto Takahashi looked solemn, and he had already made a decision in his heart. He turned to look at Landai. "Remember, young man, keep publishing, this is what a man must stick to. A lifetime of faith." "But the editor-in-chief." Landai's face was still a little unwilling, and he wanted to defend something, but was interrupted by Takahashi Makoto. "Remember? Man's romance." After watching Takahashi Makoto and his entourage arrive, Landai and the man with yellow-haired glasses beside him were speechless. The thoughtful classmate Yado noticed a hint of determination in Takahashi Makoto's eyes. "Sabas-chan, Please send the princess back first. Makoto Takahashi sat in the back seat and gently held Rina's hand, then returned to the front line, continue fighting, and kill the King of Black Flame to ashes. I understand, Sebastian, who was driving the car, responded with a smile, then, please sit tight. Although he was a little reluctant, Takahashi Makoto still sent Rina back. On the way back, Takahashi Makoto remained silent and had no intention of talking. Sebastian was also concentrating on driving. As a qualified butler, it was wrong to interrupt the meditation of serving the master. Hey, Sebas-chan, Grandpa will probably be sad if I do this, right? Makoto Takahashi seemed to be asking again, but it was more like he was talking to himself. This choice is really difficult. But now that I have chosen, you can't regret it? Now that you have come to me, Sebastian, it means that fate has given me a hint about my future choices. Although it is the same as my choice, there is still something about being manipulated. It's hard to accept. However, a man's romance, it's good to be passionate sometimes. Yes, Makoto Takahashi was unwilling to suspend publication and stop serialization, so he chose to continue drawing comics and gave up the possibility of recovering his left eye. At the same time, the silver-haired brother Fukuda was sitting on the ground, looking at his new wife Eiji, who looked a little excited, with a face filled with anticipation. The decision made by the editorial department is wrong. Nyaizuma Eiji has quills stuck in his collar, which looks a bit absurd and weird, but for those who are familiar with him, they have long been accustomed to it. It's very unreasonable and unacceptable. So before the editorial department withdraws this decision, I have decided not to submit the manga manuscript. The silver-haired guy looked firm, but I can't do this alone, so your choice, Mr. Nyaizuma, is... Oh? A boycott. Eiji Shinzuma showed a hint of expectation on his face. He picked up his mobile phone and quickly dialed a number. But before that, let's ask the Demon King first. Huh? Is this your decision? Makoto Takahashi on the other side of the phone listened to Eiji's words. After hesitating for a moment, he decisively refused. Sorry, I don't agree with this approach. I have a new proposal. Then the Demon Lord, do you have any good ideas? Eiji, the new wife, waved her hand to the silver-haired brother Fukuda, and her face returned to seriousness. Do you need us to do anything? If it is the Demon Lord's order, as long as we can do it. Hey, King of Black Flame, don't you think there are too many comics in Shonen Jump now? Makoto Takahashi's devilish laughter rang over the phone, and he began to bewitch his new wife, Eiji. How about we serialize more new comics, suppress some of the comics at the bottom, and force them all to be cut in half? Let Shonen Jump be published, except for those comics by great gods. Our comics. Oh? This idea is very interesting. Nyaizuma Eiji looked excited, but it seems to have nothing to do with your suspension of publication. Humph. How about we wait until all of our comics are drawn together and stop drawing them all? Makoto Takahashi showed an expectant smile on the phone. I hope that by then, the editorial department will be very happy. But you are going to suspend publication during this period. Although Nyaizuma Eiji was amazed by Takahashi Makoto's plan, he still pointed out the fact to the point. Just convey this idea to the editorial department. Makoto Takahashi was not in a hurry and sneered, if you want to suspend us now, the future result will be that the magazine will directly collapse. This choice, let the commander think about it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 76. Wrong choices will lead to tragic consequences. If there is still justice in this world, then the existence of so-called destiny will naturally give it judgment and punishment. Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida and began to promote his views. Just as the world desires, the world needs us to change. For this reason, I will gather everyone to create the miracle of the Messiah together and let us become the gods of the new world. Although I really want to say, congratulations on your discharge. Yoshida rubbed his head with a headache and looked at Takahashi Makoto with a painful expression, but don't make so many things happen to me just after being discharged. Let you take a break, this is the decision of the editorial department, don't vent your resentment on Shonen Jump. Humph. Since this world is already corrupt, it is better to destroy it completely. Should we seal the Demon King temporarily and wait for April next year to awaken him and sacrifice the editorial department, or should we endure humiliation for the future? My cats, make your choice. Let this Demon King see your courage and awareness. Google searched Ken. Who else have you told about this? Yoshida didn't dare to make any decision on behalf of the editorial department, and looking at the weird smile on Takahashi Makoto's face, Yoshida said in his heart, it won't be. That's right, I have notified all the cartoonists who have qualified for the King's Feast. Takahashi Makoto looked as if it was a matter of course, and the smile on his face had been replaced by the devil's smile in Yoshida's eyes. I can't accomplish anything by myself. So, with the idea of becoming bigger and stronger, don't you think it's right to invite more like-minded people to join? If you do this, I'll lose my job. And the result of doing this will ruin Shonen Jump. Yoshida thought about Makoto Takahashi's description before, and imagined what might happen next, and suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Don't be so willful, Makoto. Tisk tisk tisk, are you still complaining about me at this time? Makoto Takahashi shook his head disdainfully. Since the world is already distorted, then I will let it continue to be distorted. Besides, my beloved cat, you should thank me for letting Shonen Jump wither and perish like a short-lived flower at its most brilliant. There is no more loving thing than this. Anyway, now you finish the comic draft, and leave the rest to me. Yoshida looked at Makoto Takahashi's determined look, and could no longer be strong, so he could only compromise. I will convey your ideas to the editorial department. And these, I will bring them to the editor-in-chief. Then I will wait and see, my beloved cat. Takahashi Makoto looked at Yoshida, who was getting up to leave, with a happy smile on his face. Survival or destruction, the result is only a matter of thought. Sebastian, please send this guest and my gift to the organization's base together. Yes, young master. Sebastian, the black-clad butler, bowed slightly, smiled, picked up a thick stack of documents on the table, and greeted Yoshida very politely. So, this guest, the car is ready, shall we set off now? Yoshida and Sebastian walked downstairs together, and seemed to feel a sense of being monitored. Yoshida looked back suddenly and saw Takahashi Makoto leaning against the window, his right eye looking at him. The smile on his face could no longer be described as weird, it should be considered. Speaking of this, Yoshida looked at the butler-like man driving the car, a little confused. What should I call him? My full name is Sebastian Michaelis, just a butler. Yoshida saw Sebastian's mouth slightly raised in the rearview mirror, and the smile on his face was somewhat similar to Takahashi Makoto's. Actually, you want to ask why I appear next to the young master? According to the arrangement of the master, I will be responsible for all the activities of the young master in the future, that's all. This deep sense of powerlessness, is it really Takahashi Makoto's family? Yoshida was a little powerless to complain. Looking at the pile of documents at hand, he had a headache. Although what I said may be a bit over the top, but... Sebastian noticed Yoshida's action, and after a moment of silence, he still spoke. You may not understand the young master's obsession with comics. But I still feel that there are some things that need to be known to you, and convey the young master's will and determination to your superiors. Yoshida looked at Sebastian in confusion, with a trace of solemnity on his face. Aiken did this, is there any hidden reason? Indeed, the smile on Sebastian's face disappeared, and the car slowly began to slow down. The master once said that if the young master can take a break to receive treatment, it is estimated that after 2 or 3 years, there is still a possibility of recovery of the left eye. But the young master only said one sentence to the master's proposal: continuously updating without a break is a man's romance. Rejected. Aiken, that idiot. After Yoshida cursed, he leaned back on the back seat a little weakly, looking at the file bag in his hand with a complicated look. Why should such a thing be rejected? It's just a break for a while. Surgery has certain risks and may cause blindness, so I didn't say anything about the young master's refusal. A smile appeared on Sebastian's face again, but I don't think that the young master who dared to fight the gangsters before, will be afraid of the risks of surgery. The reason why the young master chose to do this. Ah, stop talking. Yoshida's face was a little gloomy, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. I already know. If you keep talking, I can't bear it. Since Cheng has done this, then I will definitely convince the editor-in-chief. Then, on behalf of the young master, I would like to express my gratitude to you. Sebastian showed a kind smile and stopped the car. The destination has been reached. Do you need me to go up with you? No, thank you very much. Yoshida held the document bag and looked up at Yorongshi. Although I don't know what the result will be, I will still work hard. No, I will try my best to strive for it. After watching Yoshida holding the document bag and slowly walking up, Sebastian showed a meaningful smile, picked up the phone, and started to make a call. Well, has the first step of the plan been successful? Makoto Takahashi signaled the people around him to be quiet, with a smile on his face. Thank you for your hard work, Sabas-chan. I'm starting the second step of the plan here. Grandpa over there, I'll leave it to you. Oh, the Demon King's plan is very impressive. I'm moved by it. Eiji Shinzuma's face was full of excitement. Now, what should we do next? I really want to know, because it's super interesting. I don't want to delay everyone's serialization because of me and Landai. Makoto Takahashi looked at the man and woman opposite. Especially you two, the serialization just started some time ago. If it starts to be suspended, the popularity will plummet. This is bad. Yeah, thank you very much for your understanding. Uncle Nakai was so happy that he almost cried, but Makoto Takahashi's next words made him really cry. Of course, you must also consider the impact of unexpected factors when doing things. Makoto Takahashi gently touched the eye patch on the left side of his face, so the original proposal of the King of Black Flame will also be retained. At the same time, 4 comics will be suspended. This lesson, the editorial department must be baptized by the phone storm before it will be remembered deep in the soul. Long live Shiajian. At this time, the happiest person is undoubtedly the little sea otter. You are worthy of being a teacher from the Phoenix Academy for being able to come up with such a method. If it continues, it will probably be discontinued forever. Gentlemen, the time has come to witness the miracle. Makoto Takahashi looked at the people around him, his face filled with unparalleled confidence. I believe the editorial department will compromise soon. By then, our alliance will be over. Let's have a fun battle when the series starts again. At the same time, in the editorial department, the editor-in-chief frowned and seemed to have difficulty making a decision. Editor-in-chief, this is basically the situation. Yoshida began to try his best to persuade the editor-in-chief, although what Aiken said sounds like just scaring people. But looking at the comic stories he submitted, it may be true in the future. Yoshida, these are very interesting works. And you said before that Cheng gave up the opportunity to treat his left eye because he wanted to serialize it. The editor looked at Yoshida with a gloomy expression on his face. This kid, he is really, it makes people love and hate it, but is it worth it? Maybe from our point of view, some things need to be considered whether they are worth it. Yoshida looked at the editor-in-chief with a sore nose, but for Cheng, he didn't think about it at all. In order to continue the serialization, In order not to suspend the publication, give up, there is still a chance that the left eye can be cured. As an editor, I can feel that Cheng loves comics from his heart. Isn't this persistence what cartoonists should insist on? Please take back your decision to suspend publication. After the editor was silent for a moment, he stood up and looked at Yoshida. This matter was my mistake. Let me think about the suspension of publication. Editor-in-chief, this time it wasn't just Yoshida, the editors from the previous groups of cartoonists all stood up and gathered together. Looking at the editor-in-chief expectantly, Minato Yura, the editor in charge of the Lande duo, came to the editor-in-chief with an apologetic expression, bent down. Editor-in-chief, please think about it. Yachin Mumanjai are even in the hospital, the team is still painting seriously, and the quality of the manuscript has not deteriorated, but has actually improved. Doesn't this prove the fact that they can continue to serialize it? That's right, Editor-in-chief, Yoshida took over Minatora's words. Cheng was discharged from the hospital early, and the manuscript was not left behind. Not only that, he also took the time to come up with many interesting works. That's enough. It's a good thing that you think about the author, and I've received the author's wishes. The editor-in-chief slammed the table and pushed up his glasses, and I've already thought about it. If we don't compromise, I will definitely encourage the remaining groups of cartoonists to start suspending publications on a large scale. This kind of thing. Yujiro and Aida looked at each other. The editor-in-chief really got it right. They had received calls from their cartoonists before. If they didn't stop this unreasonable suspension of publication, they would go on strike. In that case, let them continue to draw. But let's make it clear first, Yashiro Mumanjai must wait until he is discharged from the hospital before he can continue serializing. As for Takahashi Makoto, the editor-in-chief sighed and turned his back to everyone. Yoshida, have you got this week's serialization? Then continue serializing from this week. Long live the editor-in-chief, several editors cheered and started to call their respective authors. Minato was the most exaggerated and was already in tears. Humph! What a group of lawless little devils. The editor-in-chief turned his back, looked out the window, and sighed softly. It's really good to be young. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 77. Huh? Have you compromised? It's really a wise choice, so let's do this for now. Makoto Takahashi showed a smile on his face, and when he was about to hang up the phone, he heard Yoshida yelling on the other side of the phone. A look of impatience flashed across his face. My beloved cat, if you have anything to say, just say it once. Don't you know that the Demon King's time is very precious? Well, the animation about rebellion has been decided to start broadcasting on the evening of this Friday, Yoshida said in a very happy tone. To be honest, I thought this time slot would be gone, but in the end I still managed to get it. Congratulations, Cheng. Oh, is that so? Yoshida on the other end of the phone was still a little confused as to why Takahashi Makoto spoke so calmly when he heard Takahashi Makoto start laughing wildly. Oh ha ha ha, it's finally this time. Humph, the timing is really good. My long-awaited counterattack has finally arrived. I seem to have seen the defeat of the King of Black Flame. Sebastian, help me prepare dessert and black tea, it's already afternoon tea. On the other side of the phone, Yoshida felt a little angry when he heard Makoto Takahashi preparing to have afternoon tea. Didn't he say that his time was precious before? Time is precious, do you still have time to have afternoon tea? Hey, King of Black Flame, Makoto Takahashi began to issue a declaration of war. Now this Friday will be the time for the Demon King to counterattack. Your Crow army must be prepared. Let's talk first, this time is just the beginning. Although I really want to say, you are so unfortunate, this is war, so write your last words while you still have time. Takahashi Makoto hung up the phone before the other party could reply. In the surprised eyes of his assistants, Makoto Takahashi covered half of his face, raised his head to the sky and laughed wildly. His outstretched right hand slowly clenched tightly, as if he was holding the whole world in the palm of his hand. Friday is here in a blink of an eye. The assistants at Makoto Takahashi's house have gone back to rest long ago, because recently, Makoto Takahashi has turned on the Demon King's awakening mode again, and the continuous high-intensity work has made it a bit too much for several assistants. Although several assistants knew that today was the premiere of Rebellion, they were too tired to watch the premiere of the anime together at Makoto Takahashi's house. There was a heartbeat at the beginning, and then the screen turned, and the animation started amidst the chirping of cicadas in summer. At the beginning of the animation, there was no language, just two little boys climbing a mountain. One of the little boys moved very nimbly, like a monkey, while the other little boy, with black hair and purple eyes, was more weak. The movements are much clumsy in comparison. Wow, His Highness Lelich was so cute when he was a kid. Mitsuki, who was watching the premiere of Rebellion in front of the TV, was so excited. Mitsuki liked this comic at first because there were many handsome guys in it, whether it was Black Prince Lelich or White Prince Schnee-Eisel. However, as the comic unfolded, Mitsuki gradually became interested in the comic and began to follow it, becoming one of the fans of the Phoenix Academy's fierceness. Just when Mitsuki was sighing, a narration began to tell the background. Mitsuki immediately stared at the animation, not daring to blink at all. Two countries launched a war because of energy issues. In the face of the latest weapon of the Holy Britannia Empire, the humanoid fighting machine, the island nation had almost no room for resistance. Even though many people in the island nation fought tenaciously and created a miracle against Britannia, but in the end, because the high-level leaders adopted a non-resistance policy, they surrendered and became an imperial colony. The island country was deprived of its name and was called District 11. The names of the islanders have also been changed to the number 11. The 10-year-old Shumu Suzaku, the son of the last prime minister of the island country, Shumu Suenwuo, sat sadly on the desolate battlefield after the war. At this time, 10-year-old Lelich came over and said firmly, "Suzaku, I am going to knock down Britannia." This time Mitsuki was not a nymphomaniac, but was completely shocked by the war depicted in the animation. Although I have read the comics before, many scenes in the animation are more shocking, especially the cruel descriptions of war. Although Mio, who lives in a peaceful world, has never experienced a war, she feels pity and sympathy for the losers of the war. After the opening theme song ends, the title of the first scene is "The Day the Demon God Was Born," then the official animation started, and the time jumped directly to 7 years after the end of the war, which made Mitsuki a little stunned. Huh? Why did it suddenly jump 7 years in time? Although Mia was a little confused, she did not take out the comics for comparison, but continued to read out of curiosity. As soon as Lelich appeared on the scene, he had a chess match with a noble. After Lelich easily won, on his way back to school, he was involved in the Shinjuku incident and met Suzaku, whom he had not seen for 7 years. At this time, Suzaku had become an honorary soldier of Britannia. On the other hand, the two people who met again discovered that after the so-called gas canister that Kurovis called was opened, there was actually a green-haired girl inside. The subsequent developments made Mitsuki tense up. The three of them were surrounded by the army that followed. Suzaku was shot because he refused to shoot Lelich. At the critical moment of life and death, Lelich received the power of the contract from the green-haired girl, and was able to give orders to the other party, and the other party must obey the orders. "What's the matter? Don't you dare to shoot?" The opponent is just a student. Lelich covered his left eye with his right hand, but his tone was filled with an indescribable pressure, which made the soldiers holding guns on the opposite side stunned. And Lelich continued to say, "Or have you noticed it? The only people who can shoot are those who are willing to be killed. In the name of Lelich VI Britannia, I order you, to die." The power of the contract occurred, and a red mark like a flying bird flew from Lelich's left eye to the eyes of the soldiers. In an instant, consciousness was replaced and the world was turned upside down. The soldiers executed Lelich's orders without hesitation, but Mitsuki in front of the TV was so nervous that she couldn't speak. Since that day, I have been making up lies that I am still alive, my name is a lie, my experience is a lie, everything is a lie. This monologue of Lelich made Mitsuki feel a little distressed, and she even couldn't bear to watch it anymore, but the animation was still going on, and Lelich's monologue did not end. I am tired of the world that has not changed, but I can't give up lies and despair. But now I have power. Lelich's expression suddenly changed from being a little confused and ignorant to a little hideous, so. While Mitsuki was still looking forward to it, she found that the animation suddenly entered the end time. This kind of expectation after waiting, but it unfolded like this, which made Mitsuki very depressed, but when listening to the ending song, Mitsuki suddenly turned pale and shouted with regret. "Oh no, I forgot to record it. That's unforgivable." Yeah, it's pretty good. After watching the first episode, Makoto Takahashi turned to look at the sudden visitor next to him, with a satisfied look on his face. "Mr. Chen Ben, I didn't expect the choice of voice actors to be similar to what I expected. Ogasa is indeed a well-established production company, and its strength is well-deserved." "Haha, that's because your comics are very exciting." Chen Ben pushed his glasses and complimented him. He took Sebastian's tea and didn't drink it. Instead, he stared at Makoto Takahashi and asked, "So, about DN animation copyright?" "Although it's a bit rude, Mr. Chen Ben, I have handed this matter over to Sebastian." Takahashi Makoto stretched his body. "As a butler, Sebastian can make the decision. And I'm going to make up for the magic now." "Yes, master." Sebastian bowed slightly, watched Takahashi Makoto return to the room, sat opposite Chen Ben, and smiled kindly. "Then Mr. Chen Ben, please forgive me for my incompetence, and discuss the copyright of DN with you on behalf of the master. First of all, about..." Listening to Sebastian talking, Chen Ben looked at Takahashi Makoto's bedroom door absent-mindedly, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Every time this guy doesn't play by the rules. This time he fought for the copyright of DN, and thought it was a sure thing, but now. Ahem, didn't Mr. Chen Ben hear clearly? Sebastian deliberately coughed, looked at Chen Ben with a smile, and then said apologetically, "Did I speak too fast? Please let me say it again. Didn't you hear clearly?" Chen Ben would never make such a mistake. Chen Ben was distracted before, but it was actually intentional. He wanted to irritate Sebastian, let the other party realize that he didn't care, and then get angry, so as to lose the initiative in the negotiation. However, looking at the unchanged smile on Sebastian's face, Chen Ben's expression became a little solemn. This opponent didn't seem to be an ordinary person. Just as Chen Ben expected, in the following time, Sebastian completely took the initiative, and Chen Ben was almost crushed in all directions. For the negotiation skills mastered by Sebastian, Chen Ben could only keep the bottom line with all his strength, and counterattacks were just a thought. Since Mr. Chen Ben hasn't thought about it yet, how about discussing it later? Sebastian's words and deeds were completely impeccable. It's very late now. If it continues like this, it will affect the young master's rest. Then I'll leave first. Chen Ben, who knew that he had come here in vain tonight, turned around and prepared to leave, although he was unwilling. However, looking at Sebastian with a smile on his face, Chen Ben asked in confusion, "Who are you?" "I'm just a butler." Sebastian bowed slightly and said to Chen Ben with a smile, "I'm sorry for the poor hospitality tonight." "Then, Mr. Chen Ben, please leave slowly." "Butler." Chen Ben looked at the closed door, and his mouth twitched a little. Not to mention Takahashi Makoto, even a butler is so powerful. This person who can have the upper hand in business negotiations with me is really just a butler? What kind of monsters are there in Takahashi Makoto's house? Huh? At this time, Takahashi Makoto was suddenly awakened by his mobile phone when he was drowsy. He was a little unhappy. After picking up the phone casually, "Don't you know that the Demon King is in the stage of replenishing magic now? Just wake up the sleeping Demon King, have you prepared the number of sacrifices? Wow, I've seen the animation of Mr. Fengguangai Yuan. It's very exciting, only Nazuma Eiji can speak with such a unique and individual tone. Is this the counterattack of the Demon King? It's really amazing. What? It's the Black Flame King." Takahashi Makoto scratched his head sleepily. "Why? Are you calling me to surrender? I have to say this is the right choice, Black Flame King." "No, Mr. Howin," Nazuma Eiji immediately denied Takahashi Makoto's words. "I'm calling to tell you that my crow has been decided to be animated. In addition to my previous advantage in points, the victory or defeat this time is still unpredictable." "Is that so?" Takahashi Makoto instantly lost all sleepiness and smiled. "Hey, Black Flame King, I also have an ace that I haven't used. So when it comes to winning or losing, you must be the loser this time." A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 78. The next day, Lee Byungyan and other assistants came to the studio with dark circles under their eyes and saw an extremely strange scene. Takahashi Makoto wore an eye patch on his left eye, leaning on a chair with his right hand on his head, as if he was resting. Lee Yulai lay on Takahashi Makoto's lap playfully, trying her best to be cute, while Ding Haru lay on his back at Makoto Takahashi's feet, staring at the assistants who came in with dog eyes. Sebastian, wearing white gloves, bent slightly, covered his lips with his hands, and whispered something in Makoto Takahashi's ear. This similar scene is. Lee Byungyan and other assistants looked at each other, and they all had an ominous premonition. Oh? Is it already this time? Alas, there is no way. After Takahashi Cheng handed the glass to Sebastian, he turned to look at the assistants, smiled slightly, and then, amid everyone's horrified looks, Gao Qiaosheng read, 3 layers of enchantment, carved with thunder and lightning runes, 8 seals, branding wrapped around scars, relying on the evil and unclean soul, connecting through the door of hell. Devil King Awakening Mode, open. Oh, it's here again. The assistants looked at each other, and the wailing sounds continued in Takahashi Makoto's house. Tip: due to the constant wailing sounds, Takahashi Makoto's house received a new title, Between the Wails. Just when the wailing sounds continued to sound in Takahashi Makoto's home, because of yesterday's broadcast of rebellion, to be precise, the appearance of a post caused a heated discussion on the internet. The person who posted this post is none other than Muya Yang, who previously predicted the plot direction of Han Cicada. Who is the murderer of the Phoenix Academy? I don't know how many people, like me, watched the premiere of Rebel yesterday. I don't even know how many people have watched the opening and ending of Rebel in its entirety. Maybe many people will change the channel directly after seeing the animation end and ignore the opening and ending, right? I should be glad that I didn't do this, but now I regret not doing it. Because I saw something that made my hair stand on end. The original author of the comic is usually mentioned at the beginning of the title. This kind of thing may be noticed if you pay attention. At the beginning of the animation, it is customary to list the voice actors of each character, which is normal. It was previously rumored that Teihei Club wanted to invite Phoenix Academy's Koshin Dai to dub His Highness Lelich, but unfortunately, I didn't see the name of Phoenix Academy's Koshin Dai. What surprised me was that at the end of the animation, regarding the music production, apart from the singer, there was only one other signature, and that was Phoenix Academy Murderer. To be honest, I have also considered the phenomenon of Phoenix in Murderer having the same name, but after checking the official website of Taihesha, I have confirmed that the music that appears in the animation is completely arranged by Phoenix in Murderer. I was immediately stunned. A cartoonist may be able to become an excellent novelist or an excellent script writer, but to become a musician with excellent composition, the span seems a bit big, right? As an anime lover and a loyal fan of Phoenix Academy Kuma, after learning this fact, I really want to ask, Phoenix Academy Kuma, who are you? I agree with the original poster. I watched the first episode of Rebellion online again, and found that it is exactly what the original poster said. I also want to ask, who is Master Jujhen of the Phoenix Academy? Stay in formation downstairs. It doesn't matter if you are good at drawing comics, but you can also compose music and songs. Could it be that Master Kushina of the Phoenix Academy is an alien creature? I also want to ask, who is Master Koshima of the Phoenix Academy? Stay in formation downstairs. Hey. That brat, Ogata Slime Elite looked back at the post, pushed up his glasses, and turned to look behind him at Rina. Let me see this post, did you mean it? Rina, I remember me, I have already said that now you must focus on your singing career. Rina knows this. Rina interrupted her brother uncharacteristically, with a happy smile on her face. But brother, how can Rina not care about the achievements of Changkun's animation premiere? Changkun's talent for drawing comics, the more Makoto-kun shines with his musical talent in composing and writing songs, the more Rina feels proud of Makoto-kun. Just as the Ogata brother and sister were discussing, there were new replies to this post on the internet. As for the existence of being able to draw comics and write songs, two people reminded me of him. One is Makino-Oji, who has already gone to film the philosophy film, and the other is the short-lived Zero-sama. Speaking of which, the one named Zero, could it be the master of the Phoenix Academy, right? Let me ask you, who is the lord of the Phoenix Academy? Keep the formation downstairs. What you said upstairs makes sense. But I have also been to the school festival of Sacred Heart Academy. The person who performed exaggeratedly on the stage is the real murderer of the Phoenix Academy. Stop joking, okay? If you act like this inference, Phoenix Insama was able to draw such thoughtful works as DN and Rebellion when he was still a junior high school student? This joke is not good at all. Phoenix Institute Fierce Man, this name, has been seen in Shonen Jump for the past 4 years. As a reader who likes comics, I have always liked Phoenix Institute Fierce Master. After waiting for 2 years, I finally saw Rebellion. The animation of DN was premiered yesterday, and I was so excited that I burst into tears. But I don't know what year or month it will be before I can see the animation of DN. Speaking of the fact that the Phoenix Academy is really fierce, do you suffer from procrastination? The comics have already been completed, but it took several years to produce the animation. Are you really a procrastinator? The people above are all confused. What we want to discuss now is, who is the Lord of the Phoenix Academy? I personally like the ending theme, and I really like it. I also want to ask, who is the Lord of the Phoenix Academy? Keep the formation downstairs. Discussions on the internet are becoming more and more intense, and Rebellion and Phoenix Academy murder are mentioned more and more often. Some people are curious about this animation, and some are curious about the mysterious author of Phoenix Academy murder. After a week of this, the second episode of Rebel was already very hyped before it was aired. Because of Muya Yang's post, many people stayed in front of the TV before the second episode of Rebel was broadcast. If we say that in the first episode, Lelich's wisdom in playing chess surprised many people after watching it. So in the second episode, we saw Lelich using the power of the contract to seize a humanoid fighting machine and then began to direct the rebels' operations. This made many viewers, especially those who came into contact with Rebellion for the first time, deeply moved. I deeply felt Lelich's monster-like wisdom and mastery of the strategic situation. After Lelich captured a military humanoid fighting machine, he first understood the military's plans through the intelligence obtained from his classmates, and judged that the military wanted to hide the fact and had no reinforcements. Then he used friendly forces to with the intelligence, he began to judge the current situation, and then commanded the rebels. Under the disadvantage of the huge gap between the enemy and ourselves, they conducted a beautiful counterattack. It doesn't matter who it is, if you want to win, just trust me. 23 seconds later, the enemy's aircraft will arrive at the designated location. It is estimated that there will be more than 2 of them. Shoot continuously through the wall to eliminate them. There are 5 choices for the enemy next. Lelich sat in the cabin, playing with the black chess pieces in his hands, his face relaxed. In contrast, Clovis was extremely panicked. After looking at the instructions given by Clovis, the troops began to mobilize, and the screen switched back to Lelich. He saw Lelich turning the chess pieces in his hands, his tone full of disdain. "What, you actually took the stupidest step." As if to verify Lelich's words, the audience then saw that Clovis's troops were killed by Lelich in one fell swoop. Clovis watched the troops lose contact in the command room, with a look of disbelief on his face. And just when the audience thought the situation was decided, Suzaku, driving the white mecha Lancelot, took the initiative. Although I mentioned before that the white mecha Lancelot is currently the most advanced mecha in the world, many viewers only seriously realized the situation after seeing Lancelot killing the enemy. What does the word state-of-the-art mean? Seeing Lelich being chased by Suzaku, many viewers were a little depressed. When Lelich commanded the resistance, he was so high-spirited, but now he was running away in embarrassment like a defeated general. Moreover, the controllers of the 2 opposing mechas were actually close friends who had only met after 7 years of separation. Now, because of the unknown identity, there has been a misunderstanding and it has turned into a confrontational situation. I have to say that this turn of events is unexpected but reasonable. After watching Lelich abandon his mecha, change into a soldier of Britannia, and use the power of the contract to easily enter the command room of Clovis, many people were a little surprised at what Lelich did. Very curious. Didn't you keep saying that you would fight to Britannia? Why are you now arrogantly walking into the local command room? Don't you remember? We once played chess together, although I always won. That's right, we were in the Ares Palace back then. Long time no see, brother. Lelich threw down his helmet and walked over in front of Clovis. He knelt on one knee with a strange smile on his face, the eldest son of the late Princess Mariana and the 17th heir to the throne, Lelich 6 Britannia. I'm back, Your Highness. Lelich's smile faded, and his tone became full of resentment, to return everything. Lelich's identity is a bit surprising to those watching Rebellion for the first time. And just when the audience was still thinking about what Lelich would do next, the ending song sounded, and this episode of animation was over. Many viewers were a little reluctant, but they did not change the channel, but watched the ending seriously. As Muyi Yang wrote, the name Phoenix Academy Fierce appears very frequently at the end of the film, especially in the parts related to music. In addition to the singer, the name Phoenix Academy Fierce, almost monopolizing the second half of the ending. After this episode of Rebellion was broadcast, many people who knew the name of the Phoenix Academy began to ask each other about one thing, and that was, who is the Fierce Phoenix Academy? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 79. No matter how intense the discussion on the internet is, Makoto Takahashi is doing something very crazy right now. Tell me, how many times has this happened to you? Looking at the girl hanging in mid-air, Makoto Takahashi showed no pity and a nasty smile appeared on his face. Sabas beside him, as a competent butler, had a faint smile on his face, and stood quietly behind Takahashi Makoto. He neither accused Takahashi Makoto nor helped others, rather than talking about a soy sauce person. A passerby is better said to be a qualified audience. Brother-in-law, I was wrong. Iris's eyes were shining with tears, staring at Makoto Takahashi closely. For the sake of Sister Rina, please let me go this time, right? The first of Icarus's three-stage attack is to act cute and beg for mercy, but to fish in troubled waters. Makoto Takahashi raised Icarus's chin with his wooden sword and told Sebastian next to him like he was in class, this is what happened after Icarus stole food, a commonly used method. You cannot be soft-hearted or sympathetic at this time, yes, you must abandon all emotions at this time. Look carefully at her eyes, which are not uneasy, but full of cunning. That's right, at this time. If you let her go, you have already stepped into the trap of death. Humph, Iris snorted coldly, tilted his head vigorously, and after a moment of silence, he began to roar loudly, Takahashi Makoto, you psycho. You idiot. I really don't know what a scumbag like you can do. Why does Sister Rina like you? Do you know how annoying you are? You behave strangely and just say some unclear things every day, regardless of whether others can understand you or not. I thought you just escaped from the mental hospital. You scum, bastard, paramecium. Have you said enough? Makoto Takahashi's voice became a little gloomy, his face became a little ugly, and a dangerous light flashed in his right eye. Huh? Are you a sufferer? Iris spat, with a face full of disbelief, and laughed wildly, ha ha ha, since you want to listen, then of course I will continue. Takahashi Makoto, you are a pathetic person, a little bastard, a little bastard. If you think about it carefully, you are really pitiful. Those people around you look at you like an idiot and think you are a clown every day. Stop repeating those childish and stupid behaviors, I am really happy. You are really a qualified clown. Play this role well, please the world, please the friends around you, and let them show mercy. You, continue to force yourself to be your friend and your lover. Sabas-chan, did you see it? This is the second form of Iris's three-stage attack, a curse from the spirit. After a long silence, Takahashi Makoto showed a smile on his face, and lightly tapped Iris on the head with his wooden sword. Head, after mastering the mental weakness through meticulous observation, he used language as a medium to cast a mental curse. She was ignorant and could not understand that the mental curse cast through language was the most vicious trick in the world. This curse will accompany the listener throughout his life, destroying his self-confidence, weakening his will, and thus affecting his spirit. Master, that's it for today. Sebastian suddenly stepped forward and put down the calamus, bowing slightly to Takahashi Makoto, although it is okay to impose some punishment on thieves who invade your home, but such an approach is a bit too much for a young girl. Send her back. Makoto Takahashi squinted his right eye, looked at Sebastian's smile, and shook his head feebly, I'm tired and want to take a rest. Remember to wake me up when you come back. After all, I haven't killed the Black Flame King yet, so I don't dare to relax. Yes, master. After Sebastian gave a slight salute, he turned around and looked at Calamus, who was sobbing softly. The smile on his face remained unchanged, and he extended his right hand very gracefully. Then, Miss Calamus, I will see you off. Takahashi Makoto, remember what happened today. Iris hid behind Sabas, gritted his teeth, and waved his fist vigorously, this matter is not over yet. After watching Sebastian take Icarus away, he felt the long-lost tranquility. Takahashi Makoto gently rubbed his face, sat on the sofa exhausted physically and mentally, and gently touched the eye mask on the left side of his face. The mouth opens and closes, in the dark room, I don't know what to whisper. Miss Calamus, I think what you said today is a bit too much. Sebastian looked at the pouting Calamus through the rearview mirror in the car. Although he still kept a smile on his face, his eyes became a little ice cold. However, This cold look was fleeting and was not noticed by Icarus. But that bastard Makoto Takahashi, wouldn't it be too much to do such a thing to this young lady? Speaking of this, Iris growled angrily, I didn't know that this guy Makoto Takahashi, who seemed so serious, actually what a hypocritical scumbag. How long have you been with him? I've known him for many years, and I know better than you what kind of person he is. So, in the eyes of Miss Calamus, what kind of person is the young master? Sebastian slowed down the car, and his tone sounded very kind. It seemed that he was preparing to have a long exchange with Calamus. Humph. That kind of scumbag, what's there to say? Calamus was still a little indignant, looked at Sabas with some sympathy, and sighed with regret. Speaking of which, you are a pretty good guy, but it's a pity. Now, do you want to be my butler? Although it's not as rich as Grandpa Takahashi is Hein, it's not much different. Miss Calamus, I accept your kindness. Sebastian rejected Calamus's proposal without hesitation. His tone was calm but had an irresistible magic power. Then, can you tell me what the young master is like? Where are the people? Takahashi Makoto is, at best, he's a psycho, at worst, he's a lunatic, Iris said disdainfully, waving his pink fist angrily. The way people around him look at him is weird. The guy with the wet brain, couldn't he notice it? He lives lifelessly every day without caring about the opinions of the people around him. To be honest, if it weren't for Sister Rena and his delicious cooking, I won't deal with this kind of person at all. Perhaps in the eyes of Miss Calamus, the young master is indeed like this. Although Sebastian drove the car seriously, a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes, but from what I see, the young master is actually living a very painful life. Pain? Huh. Can that kind of person feel pain? Icarus sneered and shook his head helplessly. Why should I argue with you about this? Anyway, you and Takahashi Makoto are in the same group, so naturally you are facing him. The young master told me before that his soul comes from another world, and he is not from this world. Sebastian just started to tell this, but was interrupted by Calamus laughing. Coming from another world, is this another excuse? Calamus looked at Sabas with some disdain. Don't tell me that you would believe such words to deceive children. It's obvious that a guy who only knows how to pretend to be crazy and act like a fool, why? After adding an inexplicable setting, do you think it is the protagonist of the comic? What a cheap trick. Are you already addicted to this kind of fantasy? It is really hopeless. If this continues, sooner or later, Sister Rena will leave him because she can't bear it anymore. What you mean by shaking your head is? Yes, I firmly believe what the young master said. Sebastian ignored Calamus's sarcasm and raised a smile on his face. Although it sounds a bit ridiculous, I can hear that the young master, and when I said this, I looked very serious and distressed. I had the same idea as Miss Calamus before, thinking that the young master had some mental problems after the car accident, but through this period of contact, I can feel that the young master seems to. Meow. Black Cat Liuli bumped her head against Takahashi Makoto in confusion. She seemed to be deep in thought about Takahashi Makoto, and she didn't understand, so she asked worriedly. By the way, meow means what's wrong in cat language. Hey, Liuli, I suddenly understand the troubles of the barber in The King with Donkey Ears. Makoto Takahashi held Liuli in his arms and looked at the twinkling starry sky outside with a sad expression. Now I keep drawing comics every day. I don't dare to stop. I can't stop. Because once I stop, I can't help but be irritated. I can't help but worry. Although after talking to Sebastian before, Sebastian Zhang said he believed me, but I couldn't be happy. Why? Ah, humans are indeed complex creatures. How great would it be if we could be like you? Liuli suddenly broke away from Takahashi Makoto's arms and began to roll on the ground. After rolling a few times, he stopped and stared at Takahashi Makoto, and then continued to roll, as if he was possessed, entering an infinite loop. Pattern. Seeing Liulai's hard-working performance, a smile gradually appeared on Takahashi Makoto's face. The black cat Liulai stopped, threw herself into Takahashi Makoto's arms like a baby, and kept barking. "Little guy, you want to tell me?" Makoto Takahashi raised the black cat in front of him. "I see. It seems that I thought too much before. Thank you, Ruri-chan." "Meow. It's true." "Is that true? Oh, my, my domesticated cat demon actually complained about it. I really..." The smile on Takahashi Makoto's face became even thicker, and he threw the glass up and down. He stood up and laughed maniacally. "Ha ha ha, other people laugh at me because I'm too crazy, but I laugh at others and they can't see through it. I don't know." "Meow. Who is it?" Liulai suddenly jumped in front of Takahashi Makoto, hunched over, raised his tail, and stared at the door with a vigilant expression. There was a person standing there. "Noisy, noisy, what time is it?" "I mean Chuji-chan, I have just been discharged from the hospital. Now I need to have a good rest." Landai looked at Takahashi-chan and the black cat Liulai on the ground with a livid face. "You guys, this man and cat can't stop for a while." "What?" It turns out to be Landai. Liulai quickly turned around and continued to act coquettishly towards Takahashi Makoto, while Sadaharu, who opened the door before leaving, lay at Takahashi Makoto's feet and lowered his head indifferently. "Continue to sleep." Takahashi-chan looked at Landai with some contempt. "Tisk, tisk, tisk, Landai, you look like a cat and a dog. Are you really just discharged from the hospital, instead of crawling out of the pile of corpses? Are you talking about me? Your cats and dogs have become sperms, right?" Landai muttered unhappily, put down his harsh words and slammed the door and left. "It's so late at night, anyway, please be quiet." "Yoshi. Ding-chun, Liulai, let's start the rejoicing." Takahashi Makoto took out the hidden wine from the refrigerator and shouted loudly, "After tonight, I will no longer be confused. Let's drink this cup and get drunk." A middle school cartoonist. Author, Mao Do Sde Mao. Chapter 80. There is no perfect thing in this world. The existence of things is actually very simple. It's just that people like and dislike them without authorization. The same goes for comics. Unlike Full Metal Alchemist, which was also written by Hohoin Kuma, Higurashi When They Cry has been suffering from such controversy since its serialization. Readers who like it are reluctant to part with it and have read it over and over again. Readers who don't like it keep praying, hoping that this boring comic will be cut in half as soon as possible. Although Muya Yang's previous online posts made more readers pay attention to Hansekata, after more people paid attention, the controversy became more and more serious. Many readers who didn't like Hansekata called the editorial department to accuse the editorial department. It was a wrong choice to allow this kind of work to be published in Shonen Jump. Some people even threatened to find trouble in the Phoenix Academy. The main theme of When the Cicada Cries is to show the good, evil, and ugly beauty of human nature through different choices in the parallel world. I want to unite the characters in the comic through each story. Chi Li got rid of the control of fate and saved himself and others. I just want to tell every reader through this comic to trust friends, learn to talk, and learn to be rational, so that you can control your own destiny. It was Makoto Takahashi's explanation to the editor at the beginning, and it was precisely because of this that the editor agreed to let Makoto Takahashi serialize this comic. Editor-in-Chief, we can't continue like this. Although the theme of Hansekata is family, friendship, and love, at the same time, there seems to be no such plot in the comics, and speaking of the plot, its development is a bit strange. It also involves a lot of bloody elements. After the deputy editor hung up the phone, he finally couldn't stand the storm of phone calls and began to complain to the editor. Rather than this, it would be better. Do you propose to cut Hansekata in half? The editor-in-chief crossed his fingers and held his chin. He did not look at the deputy editor, but stared at the comic manuscripts on the table with a solemn expression. Speaking of which, you are all just looking at the latest serialization. Comics. Let's wait until the serialization meeting starts. As mentioned before, a serialization meeting can be a life or death meeting for a cartoonist. At every serialization meeting, the many editors who cannot attend the meeting not only look at the editors who can attend with envy and jealousy, but more often than not, they are praying. For editors who already have serial authors, they keep praying that the cartoonists and comics they are responsible for will try their best not to be nominated by the serialization conference, but for those editors who submit new comics, it is just the opposite. I hope that the cartoonist in charge of him will be able to make a splash with his new cartoon at the serialization conference. The time taken for each serialization meeting is different. After all, the quality of submitted comics varies, some are good and some are bad. Sometimes the decision on which comics to serialize or cut in half can be made quickly, but also sometimes, it takes a long time. I remember the most exaggerated record of the editorial department's serialization meeting was that it lasted 6 hours. The above new series has been decided. The editor-in-chief pushed up his glasses, glanced at the editors present, and said calmly, "Then what we want to discuss next is the comics that are going to be cut in half. First of all, When the Cicada Cries, written by Phoenix Academy Murama, the deputy editor looked at Yoshida, who looked a little ugly, and raised his voice deliberately. This manga has been ranked relatively low recently, and it has been in a row recently. The contents of several chapters are ranked after 10. Although this result is good compared to many cartoonists, according to the level of Master Ji Zhen of the Phoenix Institute, it should not be only this level. The reason why the ranking is low is because Cheng is also serializing steel refining at the same time, Yoshida immediately retorted, with a disdainful smile on his face, and what you see, deputy editor, is only the reader survey paper. Ranking, but you haven't seen the specific number of votes? You must know that the recent number of votes for Han Cicada is constantly increasing. Humph. If the plot continues to develop like this, the rankings will keep falling, and even the votes will be useless. The deputy editor looked at Yoshida with some displeasure. He felt that Yoshida had become more and more arrogant recently, and it was time to give him some color. Look. And Yoshida, pay attention to the tone of your words. Don't think that you can be complacent just because you signed a contract with a talented manga artist. Although Full Steel by Phoenix Academy is very exciting, it does not mean that every work of the genius will be successful. In the comics industry, strength has always been the key, and the achievements of geniuses do not represent everything. Do you think that the protagonist of the Phoenix Academy is invincible? To be honest, although the concept of Han Cicada is good, the plot is not good. It's a total failure. Then what the deputy editor means is that the work Han-chan. Yoshida did not finish the sentence, but the look on his face became a little gloomy. I can tell that this work can last for at most 2 chapters before it will be cut in half. The deputy editor showed a confident look on his face, but he seemed to notice that his colleagues around him were looking at him, and the atmosphere was a bit wrong, so he quickly opened his mouth to make amends. It's not that I doubt the power of Phoenix in Kayama, but I think it's a bit unfair. You can see that among the cartoonists who are currently serializing in Shonen Jump, only Phoenix in Kayama is serializing 2 comics at the same time. Department, I'm worried that he will distract his energy. I propose to cut off Han Cicada, but I actually hope that Mr. Ji Zhen from the Phoenix Academy can continue to draw Metal Steel well. I think you are worrying too much about this issue, deputy editor. Yoshida raised the corner of his mouth, and the smile on his face made the deputy editor feel a little uneasy. Just when the deputy editor was confused, Yoshida took out a stack of comic manuscripts and distributed them to many editors. I want everyone to take a look at this. I think after reading this, everyone will have more insights into Higurashi. Yes. In fact, this is the real When the Cicada Cries. At this time, You are still trying to be mysterious. The deputy editor sneered at Yoshida's words, took the comic from Yoshida's hand, and started to read it. As he read more content, the look on his face became more solemn. There is not much in the stack of comic manuscripts, only 2 chapters of content. But it is the content of these 2 chapters that makes many editors obsessed with it. As editors of comic magazines, the person they deal with most every day is not cartoonists, but comics. Many editors are quite knowledgeable about comics. Just by reading the beginning of many comics, one can guess the direction that will follow. However, for Higurashi, as far as the Myanliu arc that has just ended is concerned, not to mention many readers, even editors like them are confused. The ending is like this. Is this actually the case? I really didn't expect it. That's it? Everything before was just a foreshadowing. Master Jujhen of the Phoenix Academy is really amazing. You are worthy of being the author of DN. This kind of plot construction ability, tisk tisk tisk, I finally understand the previous content. Every article that I thought was finished is actually just a foreshadowing. The Phoenix Academy is really fierce. Teacher, it seems like you are playing a big game of chess. The wisdom of mortals. Seeing many editors immersed in comics, Yoshida showed a happy smile and started to use the group mocking skills without hesitation. Are you so surprised by a little thing? Ordinary people. Although Yoshida was ridiculed like this, many editors felt that they could not refute it. Yoshida, are you really okay with saying that? The editor looked at Yoshida next to him, with a faint smile on his face. Weren't you like this before? When you read these 2 chapters, weren't you equally surprised? And what you just said was not what Takahashi Makoto said to you. Well. Yoshida scratched his head in embarrassment. I'm not as exaggerated as they are, right? Editor-in-Chief, if the result is like this, why did the Phoenix Academy's Jujhen teacher draw it together? The deputy editor-in-chief did not have the slightest consciousness of being slapped in the face. He held the comic manuscript tightly with both hands, and his face was full of fanaticism. This ending, it's so amazing. Now that I saw the ending, I realized that I had thought too simply. The deputy editor said this because in order to cut off Hansekata before, he had done enough homework and serialized Hansekata from the beginning to the current content. He read it again and carefully considered the unreasonable parts. This can be a downfall. But he never expected that after reading the suspected ending of these 2 chapters, all that he had prepared before would be filled in by Makoto Takahashi. What I thought was a loophole turned out to be just a plot foreshadowing. This huge contrast made him amazed, and at the same time he felt a little admiration for Takahashi Makoto. As long as comics are interesting, as soon as the editor opened his mouth, many editors nodded in agreement. Many people unconsciously said the next sentence, but the editor said something different, but comics are interesting. It's not us who decides. But if this continues. Although the deputy editor wanted to cut Higurashi in half before, after reading the content given by Makoto Takahashi, he began to feel a little unwilling. Higurashi will be cut in half. If no one can persevere until that time, then I can only say with regret that people in this world are really sad. If you make the wrong choice, you have to bear the wrong consequences. Being able to become the 3 miracles is not you, the common people, can enjoy it. Yoshida suddenly said this seriously, and everyone in the editorial department, except the editor-in-chief, looked at him strangely. Yoshida spread his hands helplessly. Don't look at me like that, these are Cheng's exact words. At that time, I also persuaded him to draw the resolution chapter together. After he refused, that's what he said. To say such a thing, Phoenix Academy is so confident. The deputy editor covered his forehead with some sadness and curled his lips in displeasure, but doing this, is too willful. Yeah, that's really too willful. Many editors nodded in agreement with this statement. Ahem, No one has any objections to the continued serialization of Han-chan, right? The editor-in-chief coughed and shifted the topic to the serialization meeting. Then, the next work to be discussed whether to cut it in half is